direction?
It's a good question, and one that we're talking about every day. And, sometimes you can see a month ahead and you try to look 10 years ahead because you want to be able to plan for that. I think it's hard to say exactly where it's going to be. We've got an incredible team of committed people here that I get to work with every day, not only in the academy, but outside of it in all of our sport development units. So what we've seen is a real commitment from different groups that support the academy, from youth national teams, from high performance, from talent ID, coaching education, referees. We look at it as one single focus of sport development, of developing players, coaches, and referees. And where I see it going is more of an integration between these departments, the academy setting the standard and the model, similar to things like player development initiatives for Zone 1, that we're setting that standard for Zone 2 for players that are between 12 and 19 years of age. And hopefully that this becomes a model that's good for all players that are on a pathway to continuing to develop in Zone 2, and that this academy model can be replicated in other leagues and other programs around the country, and through different member organizations to have a pathway for every player who aspires to develop, for them to be able to do that on whatever level that is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jared. I know you're a busy guy, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of the day to join us on the podcast today.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks for your attention to the youth program, and good luck with the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Up next in the pod, we got Fred Kaiser to join us on the show. Joining us today is Fred Kaiser. Fred has been the head soccer coach at Frisco Liberty High School for 11 years and is currently the Region 2 director of the Texas Association of Soccer Coaches. Fred, how are you today, man?
Doing well, thank you. How are you gentlemen doing?
Doing good.
Well, we got to clear up. Coach over here was my economics teacher in high school as well as my coach freshman year.
Yeah, he was my coach too, but
So it's not like we're talking to a complete stranger. We kind of known him. You remember us.
I do remember you.
For good or bad. But no, he just listened to the interview with the U.S. Development Academy, Jared Micklos.
Yep.
And let's go straight to it. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Your initial thoughts on the whole interview?
I was impressed. He did a fantastic job of explaining the structure, explaining the development, what's changed over the last several years. I'd love to hear more what they're looking at going forward. But overall, he's obviously an impressive person, and I was happy with the interview. It was interesting to find out some of that information.
What did you think about we talked to you before we did the interview to get some more background information as far as the academy system and the gripes of it, of being a father, a high school coach, having gone through and seeing all the development of the academy in the last 10 years, because that's when he said it's really starting to pick up only in the last couple of years, but it's been 10 years since they've initially started this academy program. Mm-hmm. But the pay to play, I think
that's a big thing for me, and I have been at Liberty, and we were affected by it when they first started the academy program and the development program. And the changes they've made in the last 3 or 4 years specifically, I thought really improved it and improved a lot of people's opinions of it overall. When they first started the program, a lot of the developmental players weren't being tapped to play, so they got tapped as a DP, which means they weren't allowed to play high school, and I'll talk about that, I guess, in a second. But those who were tapped as a DP weren't allowed to play high school, but then they're not getting to showcase their talent in any way, shape, or form in academy games. And you had teams with rosters of 60, 70 kids where you only had your 15, 16, 17 players that were getting on the field, and in the meantime, those players are being left out. When they initially started the academy, it wasn't mandatory for players to sit out high school. It was up to individual clubs on who wanted to do that.
A school in Frisco won that, right? Like they won the state title with multiple academy members.
Wakeland won with the Dallas Texans. I believe they had 10 of their national championship players on that team.
And you said 4 of them were actually on the bench.
Yes, they were stacked. They had a couple players that were sold to Chelsea, a couple FC Dallas and things like that. But yeah, some of those players who were good enough to play for the Texans national championship team weren't good enough to start over a couple of the other players. It's not that they weren't good; it's just that's how stacked the area was, and they were a fantastic team, well coached. They did a fantastic job. So it was up to the individual clubs there, so you didn't have any standardization of, hey, some of the Texans could play, but FC Dallas couldn't, for instance.
Right.
And I do understand why FC Dallas did that, because FC Dallas was one of the very few clubs, mentioned earlier, pay to play, that foots the bill for all their academy players.
Right.
So a club like FC Dallas, when they did that, they're showing commitment to the players. In my view, same level that the players showing to the club. That's always been my big issue. Biggest issue, I should say, is not that they can't play for us. I mean, we'd love to have those players, but it's not that big of a deal. But if a player is showing that level of commitment to a club, I believe that the club should show that commitment back in terms of, hey, we're going to cover your cost of travel. You're not going to have to pay your fees, things like that. FC Dallas from the get-go has done that. And so, it makes it really easy to support there. We do need to have a restructuring, or we did, and they're in the process of doing that. Just the development of our players appears to be behind the rest of the world. So the United States did need a restructuring, and it's gone through its growing pains, but they're doing a lot. I believe that the academy structure is doing a lot better job overall of, now a developmental player that, a team's not allowed to roster 70 of them. A developmental player has to have a certain percentage of playing time. So that way, if they are, again, they're making the commitment to the club,
right.
then they are going to get showcased as opposed to just get tapped, so that one club can just say, hey, this kid's going to be an academy kid, just so they don't have to play against them, or just so that, they can do what they want with it. So going forward, I'd really like to see something of, the pay to play go away, at least at the academy level, where the clubs, the club is supporting the player and showing them the same level of commitment that the players showing to the club by giving
it's a lot of money.
Opportunities. Absolutely, it is. When you take into the travel, especially, if North Texas has 3 teams, and that might be going down, but they have to travel down to San Antonio or up to Colorado or to Seattle in order to play academy games. Those costs can add up for a family, and so it's a lot to give up, and it's a lot of commitment. But you do have your clubs that are footing the bill for those players. That's fantastic. It also helps. Again, use FC Dallas. They opened up their El Paso branch, so they are able to feed into a demographic that may not be able to afford, flying to Dallas or moving to Dallas in order to play for their programs and things like that. Where they're able to locate that talent. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see a bigger expansion of that. Obviously, your MLS clubs have a little bit better ability of doing that, but just an expansion of that, where if you're going to ask for 10 months of a commitment from a player and things like that, and what they're giving up, then you're showing commitment back in terms of paying for it.
So, Armand, feel free to comment, but you just said developing U.S. soccer players. Now, Jared went on what I feel gave kind of it
was kind of a mixed response. I feel like at some point he was like, yeah, USA, and then at some point he wasn't. And what are your thoughts on that?
If you check their mission, it doesn't say anything specific about American development.
Right.
So if they're looking just to develop, that's fine, and they do give a lot of autonomy to the clubs. So they have their application process in order to become an academy club or academy team, but they do have a lot of autonomy with the clubs. And as he pointed out, the MLS teams use it as a farm system for their players. When the academy was introduced to us a decade ago, the understanding that a lot of coaches had, me specifically, and talking to a lot of other coaches, was this is what we're going to be using to develop American players so that we can compete.
That would, I think, be like the automatic assumption, because when U.S. Soccer is funding it, that's what I would assume if U.S. Soccer was funding a program like that.
So, they have a broader mission, it appears, where they're just trying to have good soccer and good development in the United States, regardless of citizenship or ability to play for the U.S. national team. That's fine too.
Yeah, if he gave the answer just so he wouldn't have people up his butt on the sense that, oh, you're developing just America, but in the political climate that we are.
That sounds kind of wrong if you're saying, oh, you're developing American. I mean, at least in like a PR perspective.
Yeah, and I think he gave the safe answer, like, no, well, we hope they play for the national team, the U.S. national team, but, we give respects to the individual and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, it's also, the answer he gave is in line with what their mission statement was.
Right.
And it's not specific to U.S. national team. It's just soccer in the United States in general. So I could support him on that one, but I really, we should be focusing on our players. I don't really think like I talked about this before, but like a Bayern Munich or Dortmund or Chivas or something like that, if they're developing players and then that player goes off and plays for another country, I'm not sure how happy those clubs are about that. We have benefited as well.
Green,
Pulisic. But we're benefiting from it as well. So it's good to have our players being developed in foreign countries too that are a bit more structured and have a bit more infrastructure in place, and time and tradition and ability. So sending our players to foreign countries, or the parents, or however it works out, to have to get that opportunity. That's good too. Heidman's another great example of that. So I believe he was 15 when he went to England.
Right.
He's still over there now playing. But that's you have that opportunity, and that's a good opportunity to take advantage of.
Why hasn't the U.S. developed? Christian Pulisic is, to me, already the GOAT, the greatest American player. I think his creativity and his presence on the field is unlike what you've seen.
Yeah, we
from
talked
any other
about that
American.
for the Costa Rican game. Like we saw without Pulisic, there was a gap in creativity until Dempsey came on. So I think he is probably the most creative out there.
Right, but does that stem from just a cultural of not playing soccer from the age of 1, or is that a coaching problem? Where does the root of the issue come to these American? Because Josie Altidore, he's technically gifted, he's tall, he's fast,
strong.
He's physical, he's strong, all this, but you still where is that creativity where you see from the streets of Brazil, Spain, Mexico, this creativity? Where do you think that?
I think it's one of the. It's going to sound negative, but it's not meant to be. It's one of the pitfalls of being in the United States, where we have so many opportunities to do so many different things. If you look at a lot of those countries where soccer is the big thing, they don't have the infrastructure. They're not playing basketball. They're not playing football. They're not playing hockey. Now, some of your countries are. Your European countries, if you're 6'9" or you're Dirk Nowitzki or something like that, then you're probably playing basketball. That is an opportunity, and you are seeing the growth of basketball across the entire globe. But the United States, we have so many opportunities for many of our fantastic athletes to have other opportunities, and honestly, higher paying opportunities. This is an economics teacher
absolutely
in me pointing this out. But if I'm a fantastic Jay Ajayi, who graduated from Liberty, is a perfect example of this. If he could have gone pro in the United States in soccer or gone pro in football,
you're picking football.
You're picking football.
Oh, for sure. With all the
which he did. His contract there is going to be much larger than what it was for an MLS team. Now on the global stage, once you start bringing in your Bundesliga, you start looking at EPL, you start looking at La Liga and things like that. Well, those massive contracts in Russia as well, those massive contracts are larger than NFL contracts, larger than NBA contracts. But you still have things like Major League Baseball. Those are massive contracts as well.
All guaranteed.
NBA now, NBA
guaranteed
contracts
money.
are going through the roof. So if I can make $25 million a year doing that, is there? And you guys may know this better than me. Is there an individual MLS player that's earning $25 million a year in a contract?
Absolutely not. You could put a list of 4 players and you probably just get to 25.
And that'd be the 4 highest paid players.
Yeah.
So people respond to incentives. Money is a very big incentive. So if I see a LeBron James, I see a Steph Curry. I see what they're doing. I see, LeBron James is probably close to being a billionaire now, with all of his endorsement deals and all that.
Yeah.
That's what I see as an American. Well, there's a bit more sex appeal to doing that, and there's a bit more financial incentive to do it. So we have a lot of different avenues where you can be a fantastic athlete, and it's not just soccer, unlike a lot of the other countries where, like you said, culturally, from birth, we're playing soccer from the time we're born. That's what we see. It's part of our cultural identity. Look at Argentina, look at Brazil, look at a Mexico, and this is just in Central South America here, or I guess North and South America there. But soccer is a sport. So as you know, as